Hi everyone. I've just been having a bit of a play with rubrics today, so I thought I'd try and show you a little bit about what I've learnt and how you might be able to use rubrics as well within your assessment. So what I've spent a little bit of time with today is trying to do look at some rubrics within PE. And what we did at the start of the year within PE was we wanted to develop assessment rubrics for practical units of work that we could use across all of the practical units of work that we did. So this Word document is the Year 7 and 8 document, the Year 7 and 8 rubric that we put together. And if I just go back into Canvas, this is the Year 9 and 10 document that I've created a rubric within Canvas today. So you don't need to know too much about what's in there and how it's been set up, other than the fact that that's how it appears. Where does it sit? It sits in, if I go back to my courses, within my course, within the outcome section. If I go into manage rubrics, that's where the PE Year 9-10 practical assessment rubric is. If I wanted to create a new rubric, then I'd just go into this add rubric section, keeping in mind that I am in the outcome section, and I would add a rubric. I'd give my rubric a title, and this time I'm going to call it PE Year 7-8 practical assessment, because I need to start working on this one as well. And if I go into that document, you can see the first criteria that I assess is technique. So if I come back into here, the first criteria I am going to call technique. So that's the first criteria that I'm assessing. And here we've got the different ratings. So I guess you think of A, B, C, D and E within a rubric. And at the moment there's only 2 ratings columns here. I need more. So when I hover on this cell, you see a little addition symbol come up. If I select that and then select it again and then select it again, I can create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many ratings columns that I want within this technique criteria. So if this was my A criteria, and I might have it worth 5 points, but that's just nominal. This might be my B criteria, and it might be worth 4 points, for example. And you can see how I can go along each of these particular columns. What I did within the other PE one, though, was I actually created, when I started to play with the rubrics within my big campus, and I started to give a points allocation to the different, I guess, different areas of achievement within a rubric, I found it was really difficult to, for example, the points that I might allocate to an A within a rubric might be 18.5, because if you're using a 20-point scale, that sits right in the middle of the A band. But I also found that some kids were at the really high level, and so they needed a higher mark. So for example, if I had an A plus column here, I might have that at 20, for example. And if I had an A column, I might have that at 18.5 points, because that's right in the middle of the A band. And if I had this as my B column, I might have that from memory at 15 points. And my C, I think, was 12. Okay. And my D, I think, was 9. And then I need to add another one of these. So that's make me up a little bit. I'll make that C12. Okay. Which makes this one D 9 points. Okay. Which makes this one E, and that'll be 6 points. So what I've tried to do is try to choose a number that sits right in the middle of each of those grade bands, with the exception of my A+. Then what I did with the other rubric was I came back in here and I wanted to edit this, because I also wanted the description. So with technique, the A grade description, I wanted to copy and paste that in there as well. So A+, that's the description for that particular achievement, and if I come in here, I don't actually need that anymore, do I? I can get rid of that one. A grade, I'm going to edit that, and it's the same description for the A plus and A. It's just that there are some students who I think are at A plus within that sort of description of achievement, and some students who are at A within that description of achievement. So if I come into my B and edit it, I need to go back into my Word document, copy the B description, and then put it back into my rubric. Okay, go into my C, I'm going to edit it. There's my C, but I need to copy in my description. Go back into my rubric, paste the description in and choose OK. Go into the D column, I'm going to choose my little pen icon to edit that. Again, go into my Word document, copy that in, and select OK. What you can see is that it's automatically allocated a total of 20 points for this particular criteria of technique. Now, I'm not going to bore you with entering all of my criteria, but if I hit create rubric, it's created that rubric for me. And if I was to keep adding more criteria and the ratings within all my criteria, then I end up with something like I created before, which was my Year 9-10 practical assessment, where I have added all those criteria and I guess the performance standards within each of the criteria. So that's how you would go about creating a rubric. How do you actually add it to a task? Well, if I go into my assignments, but I'm going to do this slightly differently. I'm going to go into this high school test one that we've got, and I'm going to go into the assignments here, and I'll just add another one within practical reports. So I'm going to add, this might be badminton. I won't worry about a due date. You might notice that for whatever reason that rubric that I developed before was actually out of 84 marks. Don't worry about a description about that at the moment. You just need to know it was out of 84 points, that total rubric. It's because we tried to weight different assessment criteria differently within that, which seemed wise at the time, but it creates a lot of work when you're actually trying to generate rubrics within something like Canvas. So it's 84 points. It's in practical reports. I want to display it as points, mark 84 out of 84 or whatever it is. Submission type is on paper, and this is a group activity. No, not a group assignment. Doesn't require peer reviews. I'm just going to assign it to that high school test class. Don't worry about due. Going to make it available from today until some point in December, and I'm going to say now we're going to save and publish that, and that'll take me to a new screen. I've just created that task, and now I can choose to add a rubric. So I'm going to select add rubric, and I want to find a rubric because I've created it. If I wanted to, I could go through that process here. So the process you saw me going through before, I can create a rubric for that task that I've just developed. Or if I've developed a rubric elsewhere, I can just find that rubric. I want to do this is the 9-10 practical assessment that I was working on before, and I'll just go and select use this rubric. And what you'll see is that rubric is added to the bottom of that particular assessment task, which is great. Okay, that's my assessment task and I've added that rubric. But what does that mean in relation to how I mark that task? Well, you remember that Archer's the only student in this test course that I've got. I've attached that rubric to volleyball assessment here and badminton assessment. And what I'm going to do is within badminton, I'm going to open up the speed grader. And you've seen what this looks like before, but I'm going to attach or select view rubric, and that brings up the rubric that I've just developed. And I'm going to go through and assess him based on the rubric that I've developed. So technique, he might have been a B. Game sense, he might have been a B. Let's just say he's a B all the way through, and we'll just select B. So you can see that it's automatically calculated my result down here, 63 out of 84. I'm just going to save that. It's still relying on me to put it in up here, so 63 out of 84, but that rubric provides really good, I guess, especially if the words are in here as well, it provides really good feedback for that student, because when they go into this task, they'll be able to see this rubric as well, and they'll be able to see where have I assessed them within each of those assessment criteria. So I think that using the rubric will hopefully make assessment quicker for us, but it will also provide better feedback for the students, and it will be all electronic. If I go back into my mark book now, you'll see that we've got 63 out of 84 for that particular task, and we've got a practical report. We made that within the practical report group of 75%. So that's automatically generated a grade here within the assessment group that we wanted it within. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea of, I guess, why you would use rubrics. Hopefully it speeds your assessment up a little bit. Hopefully it provides the students with really good feedback on how they've achieved, and a little bit of information on how you would start to develop a rubric and attach it to a task to use within your assessment. So I hope you found that useful.